Hey folks, thanks for stopping by and welcome back to my YouTube channel Czechoslovak Gun Stories. My name is Kuba, and in today's episode we're gonna discuss the sad story of VZ52 pistol. If you follow me on Facebook, you probably noticed me mentioning the CZ52 or VZ52 pistol as an example of the sad history of the Czechoslovak gun development or gun industry. And today I'm gonna tell you why. Now, let's move back to the very last days of the World War II. At that time, the Czechoslovakia was also beginning to form a new army, new Czechoslovak army. And when the war ended, the Czechoslovak army started a huge rearmament process to find a universal weapon for each use. So you had a rifle, submachine gun, machine gun, pistol. Everything should be universal, one pattern for all branches of military, to some extent also police. Why? It's simple, because the Czechoslovak army as well as police at the time was using the pre-war Czechoslovak gear, awesome guns, no question about that, but if you combine them with wartime German stuff, so they were also using P-38s, Lugers and MG-34s, MG-42 machine guns, and with the stuff that our soldiers brought back from the Eastern Front, and if you even the already huge batch of different firearms, if you even combine that with stuff that was brought back from the Western Front by the soldiers that fought in the US and British forces, you've got a whole mixture of firearms with different ammo, different spare parts needed. So the Czechoslovak army decided to replace all the stuff. So the Czechoslovak army in the very early post-war months asked the designers, all the factories that were in the Czechoslovakia, to come up with the project for a new service gun for the Czechoslovak army. This task was mainly assigned to the Česká zbrojovka Strakonice factory, because this was obviously the firearms manufacturer which had huge experience with pistols. They were producing the VZ-27, VZ-24 pistols that were in use by the pre-war Czechoslovak army and military. They were producing the VZ-38 pistols, and many designers were working there. So it was an obvious choice. Now let's have a look at the different designs. There were actually a couple of designs based on different principles. The first one, under supervision of František Miška, was introduced by Jaroslav Holeček. It was based on the VZ-38 pistol, so from outside it looked like a VZ-38 pistol. However, it was chambered in 7.62 Tokarev. Now, as you can tell, probably the VZ-38, since it was a simple blowback pistol, it was not really suitable for 7.62 Tokarev. It's a very hot cartridge, right? So, what Jaroslav Holeček did was that he introduced a very interesting system of operation. It was sort of a gas-delayed blowback system, we can say. That was not really a successful solution, yet it was a very interesting one. Jaroslav Holeček then moved to the construction of submachine gun and other firearms, but František Miška remained as a supervisor of the whole research for the pistols for the new Czechoslovak army, and under his leadership Jiří Čermák, another very famous designer, worked on a very different type of firearm. This time it was chambered in 9mm Luger, and by the way, this was the question for the whole trial on the pistol and submachine gun, whether should we design it in a 9mm Luger or 7.62 Tokarev. Almost all the designers were in favor of 9mm Luger, because let's be honest, 9mm Luger is far better cartridge than 7.62 Tokarev, which I personally consider a very average, if even that, in many aspects. Jiří Čermák decided to adopt the Browning tilting barrel design, so the classic Browning high power type of function, and designed what was known as ČZ-47. This was once again based on the pre-war VZ-38 pistol. However, it was chambered in 9mm Luger. the gun was still double action only. However, as you can see from the picture, the grip itself was slightly better, slightly more comfortable. It was not as narrow as in case of the original CZ VZ38 pistol. JC Čermák kept working on the prototype, which resulted in what was known as CZ 471, which was once again a double action only, very similar once again to the previous prototype, using a Walther P38 magazines because these were around, easily available, so why not? And further development led to a prototype of CZ 481, and this was, in my opinion, a gun that was really ahead of its time. Let's have a look at it. It had a double stack 14 round magazine, so even one round more than the Browning High Power, single action double action with manual safety, firing pin safety, and a magazine safety. So as you can see, it was very safe gun with the possibility of first double action shots, so you could easily carry around in a chamber. It still had the very simple disassembly of the original VZ38 pistol, hence the reliability was also very good. So yes, this was really a prototype that was quite ahead of its time. Unfortunately, the military officials decided not to further develop this prototype, and they gave a green light to another prototype known as CZ482. CZ482 was introduced at the same time as the CZ481 by Kratochvílové brothers in 1948, obviously. Kratochvílové brothers, you may know them as designers of other firearms that were used in the Czechoslovak army, like VZ52 rifle or VZ50 pistol. Kratochvílové brothers were very experienced, and under the leadership of František Miška, once again, they introduced a prototype of the pistol that was using a roller-locked system. That was very interesting for the military officials because they liked the fact that the barrel only moved backwards when unlocking. It didn't change the angle, which obviously meant that the gun was probably more accurate than the Browning tilting barrel design. And it was, actually. An interesting chapter in the development of CZ482 occurred in 1948, when a group of Swiss army officials traveling across the Czechoslovak arms factories visited the Strakoince plant. They were amazed by the CZ482 prototypes and requested a couple of prototypes for testing and comparison. Furthermore, they were interested in purchasing 3,000 to 5,000 pieces or buying a license if the comparison ends in favor of CZ482. The testing was done in Waffenfabrik in Bern, and CZ482 was up against another contender by SIG Company, a pistol designed by Charles Gabriel Peter that later became known as SIG P210. Swiss were very interested in the reliability of the prototypes, since the roller-locked system did not change an angle of the barrel, and that helped with feeding issues the guns with Browning action might face. As for the accuracy, the CZ482 was tested with both Czechoslovak and Swiss-made ammo, and the results were surprising since the CZ482 was significantly more accurate than P210. It was also 20% cheaper on manufacturing costs. Unfortunately, after the February of 1948 Communist Revolution, the Czechoslovakia started to be more and more isolated from the Western world, and the deal with Swiss government went nowhere. Swiss soldiers were then equipped with what became known as one of the best pistols of all time, SIG P210. If you look at the CZ482, you may find a lot of similarities with the CZ50 pistol or VZ50 pistol. If you have a look at the overall design, if you look at the loaded chamber indicator or manual safety and the cocker, you can see that the CZ482 looks almost like an enlarged prototype of CZ50 pistol. That's because Kratochvílové brothers were working on both at the same time. And why would you change something that works actually, right? The prototypes of CZ482 were available in both single action, double action, and also with a single action only. The gun proved to be very reliable and very accurate. However, the The testing by the army resulted in a couple of requirements for the gun to be improved, sort of, to meet the military standards a little more. However, it was not for good. The gun was reworked and marked CZ491. There were slight changes to the feed ramp, which was now part of the frame and not the barrel. Also changes to manual safety and some other components. However, compared to CZ482, the CZ491 was slightly less accurate and also less reliable. Still, the results were very acceptable for the military weapon of its time. In mid-1950, the order came to stop the development of CZ491 in order to start the process of rebuilding the prototype to 7.62 Tokarev, because it was decided that we will adopt in the end the 7.62 Tokarev cartridge. Now, if you have a look at the differences in performance of 9mm Luger and 7.62 Tokarev, and if you consider the system based on which the gun worked, you probably understand that it was very unwise decision, because making the gun work reliably, accurately, and with the same service life using a much harder cartridge was not very easy, right? And it proved to be right during the testing of the new prototype in 7.62 Tokarev that was based on CZ491, now known as CZ513. The gun was changed from single action, double action to single action only, although it had a decocker, which makes no sense in single action only firearm. It had a free floating firing pin, which was prone to break. Also, the slides were prone to break, especially when the rollers were recessed into the slide. CZ513 was tested in 4 phases between early 1951 and late 1952, and it proved that the gun was not sufficiently accurate, not sufficiently reliable, and it had problems with durability as well, especially because of the hot 7.62 Tokarev cartridge, which was not really the ideal round for a roller locked system. So the tests actually showed the same result, but despite that, the gun was accepted into the service of the Czechoslovak army in the 1952, hence named VZ52. The interesting thing here is that even though it was accepted to the service, the same order that said that the gun is to be introduced in the service of the Czechoslovak army said specifically that the designers should start the research on a brand new firearm designed on Browning tilting barrel system that would be having much better results than the VZ52 pistol. So that said, it means that the VZ52 was supposed to be just a temporary solution for the Czechoslovak army. There was a research, there were two major prototypes of pistols that were supposed to replace the VZ52 in service right away, using, for some reason, once again, Tokarev cartridge, even though the Russians were already switching to 9mm Makarov, but whatever, commies, you know. And so it seemed that the VZ52 will have only a very short service life in the Czechoslovak army, but since none of the prototypes was probably satisfactory enough, the VZ52 pistol remained in temporary service for 3 decades, only to be replaced in the early 80s by the VZ82 pistol. So the gun that was known to be not really fit enough for the purpose of the service in the Czechoslovak army remained in the service anyway for 3 decades. Another interesting information showing the logics of communists occurred in 1967, when the authorities decided that it would be nice to try to export the VZ52 pistol, but obviously 7.62 Tokarev was not a prospective cartridge for the purpose, so they ordered to rebarrel the VZ52 pistol back into 9mm Luger cartridge. So they took actually a good prototype of CZ482, ruined it by introducing the 7.62 Tokarev cartridge, only to a couple of years later try to go back to use once again the 9mm cartridge with which the gun at the very beginning worked just fine. Communist logics. So guys, this is it for the VZ52 pistol. Very sad story of actually two very promising prototypes. One based on the Browning tilting barrel design, the other one based on very interesting roller-locked breech. Both were ruined by the Czech communists and their servility to the Soviet Union. So, unfortunately, instead of having a great service firearm, the Czechoslovak army was stuck with a very bad one. So guys, that's it for today. Thank you for watching. If you learned something new, please subscribe to my channel, like the video. Should you have some questions, remarks, anything you would like to share with me or ask, just use the comment section, it's there for you. And until next time.